President Obama's popularity plunges. Uber is under attack in the city of brotherly love, and it's Flashback Friday. All of this and more on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Camera one.
Talent.
Ready, camera two.
Record.
Cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Greetings and thank you for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we run down some of the big stories making headlines. I'm Tammy Bruce, in for the very cute John Phillips. Joining me here in studio is Michelle Fields, which is fabulous. And next to her is the not quite as lovely, but still pretty cute, Stephen Cruiser. I mean, come on, look at those two. Now let's go to the top of the rundown. And we begin with Michelle. What do you have for us?
At the top of my rundown, Republicans in Congress are more popular than President Obama. That's according to a new Gallup poll. The numbers, according to the poll, say that Republicans have a 42% approval rating. President Obama has just a 39% approval rating. His disapproval rating is now at 56%. When asked who should have more influence over the country, a majority of Americans chose Republicans in Congress over the president. Now, this is interesting because Republicans in Congress are apparently more popular, yet we're expecting in about a week the president is going to make some executive orders regarding immigration. How do you think the American people are going to respond to this, Tammy?
Well, you know, we already did. Obama's been making noise about doing this, the immigration on everything, you know, deals with Iran, immigration, amnesty, there is border chaos, we've got weird diseases hitting kids through the country. The vote for the midterms was a vote to stop this man. And this is now, he's doubling down. Look, you've got to hand it to him. This is what he wants. He's not going to stop. And this is going to be a test. This is a great opportunity, though, you guys, I think, for the Republicans to illustrate what they stand for. I think Obama's making it very clear for where he stands. And now the Republicans are going to have to step up and deliver with what the American people wanted.
But, Cruiser, as a leader, shouldn't you say, well, look, the American people have showed me this November that they're unhappy with my policies, they're unhappy with what I'm doing, and that maybe we should try to reach across the aisle, see what Republicans have to offer, and try to compromise, right? Isn't that what a leader is supposed to do?
That's what a good leader would do. He'd be trying to build some kind of coalition right there to save his legacy. But sadly, right now, there are a couple things at play here. I think that a lot of the political class on both sides of the aisle in D.C. has lost the notion of a representative Republican. They don't get that they represent the people anymore. And also, this man in particular is politically a petulant child. I mean, you're dealing with a toddler mindset right now where he's been told he can't do something, and that doesn't mean he's not going to do it anymore. It means he's going to go over here, stomp and scream and scream and scream and scream until everybody just gives up and he wears people out.
You know, we need to put him in one of those bouncy swings.
Put him in one of those bouncy swings.
Put him in one of those bouncy swings, where like in the basement of the White House, so he can't go anywhere.
With Teletubbies playing in front of him, just to mesmerize him.
We've got to address this, and you touch on it, Stephen, with the notion of the government doesn't see itself as representing the American people, and in part, perhaps that's because we're too stupid to understand, okay? In this last week, Jonathan Gruber revealing what liberals and the Obama administration's always thought, which is that they're above us, they know better, we can't be trusted to make our own decisions. This notion that he has said now in some fashion 3 times, at least on video, you can imagine how many times he said it not on video, that the American people are just stupid. And that this is why they've lied to us and why deception was used for Obamacare. Michelle, what will the impact of those statements be? Some are saying it won't have any impact at all. Others are saying this is going to wipe out Obamacare.
Well, I just don't think it's that surprising. I mean, for many of us, we know that this is what liberals believe. I mean, liberals think that the American people are too stupid to feed their children. They're too stupid to know what to put in their bodies. They're too stupid to know what kind of doctor they should go to. So for us, this isn't surprising. But I think the American people who are not Republicans are going to look at this and say, wow, this is pretty revealing.
Because they didn't say just conservatives are too stupid to understand.
People. The voters are stupid.
It's everyone, and especially perhaps their own base. The contempt clearly has grown. You see the condition of their own base. Stephen, is this part of, hopefully the Republicans will use it, even if they don't, is this part of the death knell for Obamacare?
I think it's going to help. I was listening to a liberal radio show in the middle of the night as I was driving back to Los Angeles last night, because they still
Party
exist.
boy.
They still exist at 2 in the morning somewhere. And these guys were saying Gruber could be the man who goes down in history as being responsible for having killed Obamacare. And there was all sorts of wailing, and the teeth were gnashing, and the garments were rending, and you could hear it. And I don't know if it's going to have that much of an impact. They were trying to actually make it seem as if the Gruber thing made the Supreme Court want to hear the case again, which was not the timeline at all on this. But they were conflating it so badly there. They were just, well, now the Supreme Court's going to listen to it.
Well, now you know why Gruber thinks what he thinks.
Yeah.
Right? Because his own base is not quite connected in.
I don't know how much impact it's going to have on the court, and I don't know. The thing is as we know about these omnibus bills, these big things like this, once so much of it is in place, even if you're trying to pull this out legally, pull that out legally, there's so much of the apparatus screwing up the bureaucracy already, it's hard to get all of it out of the system.
Yeah, it's like using some kind of removal tool on your computer. Some programs just don't want to go, do they? All right, Cruiser, what do you have for us?
At the top of my rundown, the city of brotherly love has no love for Uber. The city is the latest one trying to crush the car service. Philly's parking authority has impounded 15 Uber vehicles and given each driver a $1,000 fine. The agency which regulates taxi service says Uber has unlicensed and unregulated drivers, which is not true because they're all licensed drivers. What they're saying is they haven't gotten the extra taxi license and paid the city, and everywhere that they've tried to do this to Uber so far, it's failed spectacularly.
But what I do like about this conflict that's happening in a lot of cities, it happened in DC, it happened in Los Angeles, is that a lot of people who go in Ubers are young people, and they're starting to see this crony capitalism firsthand because they love Uber. They really do. They hate cabs, a lot of young drivers, and they're seeing that Uber is trying to be pushed out by these taxi drivers and these companies in bed with local governments. And I think it's raising awareness about the crony capitalism that happens in the local level.
Well, and especially for the young people who are the drivers themselves, that this is about entrepreneurism. That pretty much anybody can do if you're inclined to do it. And you do see it's almost like extortion. It's like regulations. They're getting a sense of what regulations do, which is push out other people. The left has this big program about they don't want any bullying. Well, this is the epitome of bullying by the government. So this is another great opportunity. Look, regulations can be good at a certain point. For those of us, we've talked about this before, have grown up in Southern California. The air suddenly, you don't see the air every day, you know, when it comes to smog and all of that. But then it gets to the point where the unions are in bed with the government and they start to use it as a screw to keep other people and to keep competition out. You know, that's fascist in a lot of ways, isn't it, Stephen?
Well, the whole thing is pretty anti-freedom on both ends, not only on the consumer's choice, but, you know, the Uber people, the young entrepreneurs, they pick their own schedules,
That's right.
they work, and it's wonderful for them. They're fitting it in with other jobs. It's a great way to make extra money. And what the state is saying, you don't get to pick how you want to get to an airport or to a restaurant or something. It's absolutely, we had, my girlfriend, when she was leaving town last week, we were heading down to the airport, and we took an Uber, and the guy said, "Well, can one of you get up front when we get close to the airport because they'll give me a ticket if I go in." So we're laughing with him. He's just here from Spain. We get to the airport. He said perhaps I should cry a little bit to make it seem. And then he's hugging us. He said, "I'll hug you guys to make it seem goodbye." And it was a nice experience. And the nice thing is about Uber, as we all know, they keep their cars cleaner than the cab guys because it's their own property.
And it's safer.
The other worry too is, as your story indicates, these fines and the impounding of cars. You talk about the ultimate in fascism. That could, what person has $1,000 extra to pay? So this is where it's getting really hot, and I think the people of Philadelphia need to stand up to this.
Well, my big hope is, you know, because it hasn't worked so far, and I hope it can crush these kinds of these bureaucratic monopolies. And the head of one of the cab unions in San Francisco already said they will eventually put us out of business.
Yeah, well, if they know how to compete, it won't necessarily happen that way. All right, at the top of my rundown, just as President Obama is preparing for executive action on amnesty, Border Patrol officials have yanked thousands of rifles from agents. The agency says it's an effort to refurbish their weaponry. But doing so has left agents, at least a lot of them, without a gun at all. Border Patrol officials say 1/3 of the Border Patrol's M4 carbine rifles were tested, and a few thousand had potential for malfunction. However, the gun's manufacturer has never issued a recall. Now, what concerns me here, too, is that with this if Congress allows this to happen by not defunding it, it is going to be an invitation for another rush at the border, which we've already had. To unarm these Border Patrol agents is obscene, but part of one of Obama's 10 points for amnesty is to give all the Border Patrol agents a raise, to help raise their morale. You know, for those of us who now, via Gruber and the other attitudes, we know that this is an administration that deliberately lies. I don't believe that these guns need to be confiscated for being fixed, for some kind of malfunction. Michelle, do you think that that's a legitimate thing to be doing, or do you think this is about just kind of sending another message to the world that the border's unarmed, literally?
I think that's what it is. I mean, I don't think they care about protecting the borders. If they did, they would have done something by now, this administration, and they haven't. So I think they're fine with letting people. I think they want people to come in. So I think that's what it's about.
The potential for malfunction has always been there with the M4 for the longest time.
I think with any gun except for a revolver.
Yeah, this isn't really new. And then, you know, maybe fix them on a case-by-case basis or something, but not like those, like this unilateral disarmament.
I know, that's exactly what it is.
It's ridiculous. And this is, and you know what a real morale booster is, I think, when you're getting shot at, if you have something to shoot back with. That's a real pick-me-up.
See, and
if they're sitting there getting shot at without anything to shoot back with, not so much
because the concern is not, nobody's shooting at the illegal aliens trying to come over, but the drug gangs. And the Mexican military, which has done incursions and has shot at our Border Patrol agents.
What if ISIS wanted to come over? I mean, it's like we're just sitting there.
The easiest way to stop them, those of us from the Southwest know, I'm from Arizona and California my whole life, is you just sneak in a houseplant or some produce into their luggage, and they're going to get caught at the border. You cannot get across the Arizona or California border with any kind of produce.
Plant some produce.
It stopped me at 1 in the morning last night to see if I was bringing an orange over.
There you go. All righty. Well, it is now time for Flashback Friday. And Michelle Fields, you were up first.
For Flashback Friday, my Flashback Friday is Ellis Island. It was on this week in 1954 when Ellis Island closed down. The Gateway to America processed more than 12 million immigrants since it opened in 1892. About 40% of all Americans can trace their roots through Ellis Island, which is located in New York.
That's very nice. I think I may have found my grandfather's name, finally, at Ellis Island at the turn of the century. So thank goodness for those records. But they changed his name, and now I'm still trying to figure out what the original name was, if this is the guy. So thank goodness for Ellis Island.
They were efficient with that. That makes a problem for genealogical research, but they're, too long.
Yeah.
Like my Polak relatives all got butchered.
Yeah, yeah. But it reminds us also of how immigration used to be handled. Cruiser, you're up.
My Flashback Friday story, we're taping this on the 13th, and it was 35 years ago today when Ronald Reagan announced that he was running for president. In a speech, he said he was worried about rising rates of inflation, unemployment, and interest rates. Everything old is new again.
Nothing really changes, does it?
No, nothing really changes. You had an out-of-control leftist president in there driving everything up through the roof, and it was 35 years ago today. A little nostalgia. I don't mind getting nostalgic for Reagan. I don't think we need to keep looking for the next Reagan, because that's it's like looking for the next Michael Jordan in basketball. Too much pressure on somebody.
But it reminds us that it's possible. Michelle, we went through the Kennedy-Reagan years. For you, is it surprising to you that it's the same issues now that we're facing as we were when Reagan had to run to get rid of Carter?
It isn't surprising. I mean, we continue to deal with the same exact thing. I mean, it is what it is.
At some point, we have to get it right. That's up to you now. You're just get it right.
We were having problems with a little country called Iran then. Wait. Oh.
It's like some time portal has happened. Yeah. All right, speaking of time portals, some things don't change, like love. My Flashback Friday story, it was 60 years ago this fall when iconic blonde Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio filed for divorce. They did this after just 6 months of marriage. Now, lost love letters between the couple are up for auction. Letters were sent just a few months before, within the couple of months before their divorce. What's interesting is that the belief is that he got tired of her, whereas in fact the letters generally are him begging her to take him back. And he was controlling, apparently, somewhat emotionally abusive, and so you got to hand it to Marilyn Monroe for saying enough is enough. She didn't let it go on. And according to those letters, he seems pretty distraught, which is surprising a lot of people.
Well, 6 months of marriage in Hollywood is like a decade, so.
Yeah, because who was it?
They
Britney
stuck.
Spears, 5 minutes in Vegas?
She marries an athlete and a playwright. I mean, she wasn't doing herself any favors. There were doctors out there that could have married Marilyn Monroe.
But for me, it's like these men are marrying Marilyn Monroe, and they wanted, you know, the
housewife.
I don't know, Julie Andrews? I mean, don't marry Marilyn Monroe if you've got some control issues, dude. But there you go. So again, some things never change, remains still the issue. All right, well, that's going to do it for us today. What do you think about this lovely show? Be sure to leave your comments in the comments section below. I'm Tammy Bruce for Stephen Cruiser and Michelle Fields. Joining me here in Los Angeles, thanks for watching The Rundown.